Yes. hmm I'm just looking at the law. Yeah. hmm has anybody seen the Contemplation of Justice, a statute before the United States Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C.? Yes. The Contemplation of Justice. Oh. I've often talked about the Supreme Court of the United States. Yes. And I think we should really consider this statute that they put in front of the United States Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. Exactly why did we put that statute there? Now, this contemplation of justice, yeah, the statute before the United States Supreme Court building, yes, this is a picture of it. Now, I was kind of thinking that the Supreme Court justices of the United States, yes, do you enter the Supreme Court through the front entrance or do you go in through the back entrance? Could you get me all the doors of the Supreme Court of the United States? And I just wanted to know who it was that decided to put the Contemplation of Justice statue, yes, in front of the front entrance of the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, let's say you're a Supreme Court justice. Oh, you're Ginsburg, John Roberts, Gorsuch, Elena Kagan, Thomas, yes. Oh, look at the new guy that Donald Trump appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. Yes. And your job is to interpret the constitutional meaning of the Constitution. Yes, it does. Now, they have what's known as other kinds of law. Constitutional law is the body of laws applying to the conduct of government and the rights of persons under the provisions of the state and federal constitutions. State and federal constitutions. The Supreme Court of the United States is the final court for the interpretation and application of the provisions of the federal constitution. The highest court in each state decides the meaning and application of the Constitution of that state. Yes. Now, when I think about constitutional law, I thought, yes, when reading the Constitution, that there were certain rights that had to be enforced. Yes. Due process rights. Equal protections of the law. Yes. That you could not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. Yes. Now, in my own personal life, yes, my wife abducted my sons. Oh, she moved to Clallam County. Yes. And then on July 8th of 2011, they issued a protection order while I was in jail. Yes, it does. Now, I have read the RCWs of the state of Washington. Yes. And it says that you must have proof of service in the file before issuing a permanent protection order. And it must be at least 5 judicial days before having a court hearing. Now, the interpretation of this actual state law, yes, it does, has been really interpreted to mean that we can issue any fucking order right now, as long as you serve the respondent after issuing the permanent protection order. Yes. Because the state of Washington has interpreted state law as meaning we can issue court orders whenever we want because of this ideology, yes, of protecting women and children. Hmm. Now, as a father, yes, concerned about Father's Day on Sunday, concerned about my own ancestry, yes, my actual biological father, Paul Douglas Budnick, yes, that married my mother and at least applied for the marriage application at 16 years old, yes, it seems that the state of Washington does not enforce the requirements of law to be of actual age of the age of 18 when issuing marriage certificates in 1970. Yeah. And then yesterday I documented the felony of infant abuse because I almost died as an infant. But no one will allow me to speak to my own family. Yes, they won't allow me to speak to Maryland because of some lawsuits that I'm wanting to use the courts to file. Yes, and they won't allow for me to have my rights enforced as a parent. Yes, as an adult child. Yes, in that I was a child at that time, but I'm an adult now. Yes. Now, let's say I took this to the Supreme Court of the United States, and I've often mentioned that you appointed to the actual office as a justice of the Supreme Court. I was going to fire every fucking one of them. Now, I think, yes, that the falsifying of the marriage application at the time of 16 and 17 years old should establish some sort of Supreme Court precedent. Yes, that we never lie about our applications for any government issued document or identification. Now, you're sitting there, Thomas Pooch, aren't you? John Roberts. And you're saying to yourselves, well, there's no possible way, there's no way that this could violate state constitutional rights, that it could violate the United States constitutional right, yes, to not have to be identified as a child of a married couple that were not of legal age to marry at the time of the marriage. Now, let's say I got upset at the Supreme Court of the United States. Oh, Elena. Elena!